this is my second time back in the recruiting world, and he's a really sharp young man. He's going to do great things in the team.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for your service.
Welcome home.
Yeah. Thank you all for your service.
If you would, if you had the opportunity, right next door in Cafe Ray, we're gonna have a meeting. Some meetings take more than a couple hours, so you don't have to stay. But we'd like to show you Cafe Ray. It's a room right next door. Our director of building and grounds is a former soldier in the Army, and we have decorated the entire room with all the armed services and the flags. He did an incredible job, and it's dedicated to the armed services. So you're more than welcome to take a peek in there. And anytime that you'd like to come and visit Lapeer County, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bring us down to our agenda. So, got some additions?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we add committee work to the agenda.
Just the topic
Just the topic. Yep.
for discussion.
Oh, yeah, for discussion. Well, for discussion and potential action.
That's what we'll discuss.
Okay.
Anything else, Quentin? Any to add?
No, just when the opportunity is right, I would like to talk about the American Rescue Plan and its report. But I think we can capture that. We can capture that under financial planning budget.
You want to do it there? You want to just do it under additional items under 3?
3 would be fine. Thank you.
Chairman, I'll move the agenda with those changes.
We have a motion and support. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carries. Regular board meeting minutes, August 9th, 2021.
Chairman, I'll move both regular board meeting minutes of August 9th as well as the budget hearing minutes of August 16th. Support.
Any discussion on those? We have a motion and support. All in favor of that, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Review of commissioner mileage expense sheets and grant applications going around the dais this morning. You see anything that looks like it's out of place, please bring it before the board this morning. That'll bring us down to elected official department head updates. John, Mr. Phil.
I have one. Good morning. It was nice to have those fine head measures this morning. It's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Just a couple of brief updates I wanted to bring to your attention. As you may or may not know, there's a change in the laws governing the state of Michigan. Whereas in October, anyone under the age of 18 is going to be required to be charged with probate court rather than adult court. There's several crimes that are exempt from that procedure, but that's all going to revert to that. So, for example, if there was an 18-year-old that had been charged with operating while intoxicated, that would go right through district court. Going forward, that's going to go through probate court. I'm not sure if anybody's kind of alerted this commission of that change in the law, and the reason why I'm here to inform you of that is because, as you well know, incarcerating juveniles is an expense that comes out of the Comm's budget rather than the state of Michigan's budget. So that's something that's going to be on our horizon. Now, another issue that I'm dealing with that, we've had a few cases of some juveniles charged with violent crimes, stabbings, things like that. When it comes down to a serious assaultive crime like that, it's my philosophy that a lot of times if it's violent enough, we can seek a waiver to go from probate court, juvenile procedure, into adult court, into a regular procedure. I have cases open and pending right now that we are working hard to try to get onto waivers, because we believe that those individuals are dangerous enough, they need to suffer an adult consequence rather than a juvenile consequence. But again, it comes down to funding. And we get some resistance from the courts for that. They don't want to have to pay for it out of their budget. So I'm just trying to give you a forecast of what's coming in the near future with expenditures and some of the issues we may have to deal with as we step forward. So that was the big one. The other one I wanted to advise you of, and I know I'm short on time, so I'll keep this brief. Jury trials. We have our first jury trial that's going to start October 5th. It's going to be the Lydell Dukes murder case that occurred in driving in 2019. We're working diligently. We'll be prepared to seek a conviction on that for first-degree premeditated murder. The reason why I'm here to talk about jury trials is right after that, on October 19th, we have our second jury trial. This is the first trial we've had in a year and a half. With that said, we need to have a plan that closes the gap on jury trials. Right now, having one circuit court docket is not going to be enough to sufficiently close the gap on backlog cases when we're continuing to fill the pipeline with new cases. So I've shared that opinion with the judges. I've shared that and kind of got mixed reviews, mixed responses as to what my plan was. My plan was to have cross jurisdiction, which we have in our courts anyways. Judge Hodges has volunteered to do these jury trials. He's more than skilled and capable, competent in handling those. I also shared the notion of perhaps we get a visiting judge for a few months and schedule a bunch of jury trials in the old courthouse. Because in my world, what happens when a trial date gets firm and there's no more adjournments, people want to know again what the plea deal is. So part of that process and part of that strategy is to close these gaps and catch up these cases and get us back to a current criminal justice system rather than having a continued backlog and we're just pounding more cases on top of trying to get them through one court docket. It's just not an effective process. So, as we go forward, we have 2 jury trials scheduled for this year. I wish we could do another one in 1 or 2 in November, another 1 or 2 in December, but that's not going to happen. So we're looking at January. So that if we go at this pace, you can quickly see that 3 years from now, I'm going to be trying cases that are still 2 years old, and that's just not the go-to that we want to achieve. I don't think in responding to these issues. So I appreciate the time. If there's any questions or issues, you all know where to find me. I'm happy to answer those. But I thank you.
Go ahead.
Just so you know, John, so I'm glad to see that you're so busy you don't get a chance to watch any of our meetings or hear our discussions, because the first topic kind of reminds me of the weather forecaster when the hurricane makes landfall. It does, if you look behind me, you'll see all the stuff.
Right.
You're that guy. But we have had forecast going on for a while. So yes, we've been aware of this one for a while. This goes back a lot of different years to where Michigan is one of the few states that previously has done it with 17-year-olds being considered as adults, and different criminal justice committees and commissions and things with different governors have all kind of pointed to this is the better system. It's always been county concerns. Hey, we're on board with that as far as who's going to pay for it. And of course, the state throughout the process, right up to its implementation now, has assured us, no problem. There's not going to be no additional cost to us. They're going to take care of all of this. So I'm sure we can rest comfortable in that. So yes, we're definitely aware of the strain that's going to put on child care fund and other funding, and we're going to have to work closely with the state on those issues. But thank you for at least bringing it to the forefront. I just want you to know the commission is well versed in it, has been working with the other court partners on that, which is a good segue into the second one, the court partners. Of course, we have very little, if anything, to say on that whole court process. We just end up having to pay the tab on whatever the tab is for justice. So you'll work through that backlog, of course, with the chief judge and through the court process. But I think we all share your concerns that, number one, we're all appreciative as far as how your administration hit the ground running to clear up the backlog on warrant requests and things of those nature. I think we all kind of knew this was the part of the system, and it's not unique to Lapeer County. As you know, it's across the state, it's really across the nation as far as this is the more complicated part of the court system that's going to be the hardest to catch up. And I'm just really curious if you would have a discussion, if you haven't already, with Quentin. Quentin, would ARPA monies at all be available if we end up having any financial burden in bringing a visiting judge in? Because I can understand somewhat the court's concerns or issues with your first proposal. And again, that's totally out of our hands. But as far as having the old courthouse, having a visiting, I think we all want to see justice delayed is justice denied. And we all want to see the backlog resolved on these serious cases to have some semblance of justice. And it seems to me like that is the most logical path. But again, there is a cost burden there, and I would like for you at least just to have a conversation with Quentin, because when we talk about these ARPA dollars being used for quality of life has always been for communities, no matter what community, whether it's ours or anywhere else, to feel safe and secure in their community. So I would think that public safety and the justice system would be very important expenditures of those dollars to help with these serious offenses get cleared up. And if that helps bring a visiting judge in to do that, just as one person, I'm all for those dollars being used wisely for something.
It's interesting that you bring it up. I will look into it further detail. There's actually two categories that touch on that. One is public sector staff. That's a category. The other one, which is interesting, is social health. And they provide monies for community violence interventions. And so that's worth exploring, at least at minimum.
If nothing else, I think it's worth a good topic to Mac to ask, because again, this is not a situation or a request that be unique to Lapeer County. It would affect every county across the state. And if Mac has a discussion with their labor councils that are reviewing this statute and they decide safely, yes, this is a legitimate expenditure, I would be one person that.
I'm happy to look into it.
I agree wholeheartedly, and Quentin and I had kicked around some ideas before and had some previous conversations about it, because I brought this to his attention before. I'm just trying to, I guess I'm panhandling for the court, right? Because it's not out of my budget.
Sure.
But it's something I think is important to our county, and something that I think I would like to clean up. I would like to get this resolved. I would like to get our cases caught up. It doesn't help my cases the older they get. Witnesses disappear, things like this, people move, and then it becomes more expensive for my budget. So it's just kind of a snowball effect when we keep delaying it. And being that there's other counties that have been having jury trials since May, we're just now starting in October, I'm ready to kind of hit the ground running and get caught up. So yes.
Yeah, two quick questions for you. With this change in probate, how's that going to affect your staff? Do you suspect any staffing issues, or?
I don't anticipate a drastic change we're already dealing with, reduced workforce and the layoff that we had encountered. So that individual did a lot of the juvenile case tracking, which is a separate case management software, and it's an old story. We got help on the way on that. But I anticipate it being, as far as prosecutors are concerned, being a shift. So we're going to take a few more cases out of district court and deal with the probate court. The only other side is the juvenile process can be a little bit longer with case with reviews and things like that, where it's adult. If someone's charged in adult court, they can come in on the first court date, say, "Yep, I'll take the plea deal, moving on, pay my fines, do this and that." We don't have to touch the case again. That with probate we do.
All right. Second question is, how's hiring going?
Bad. I haven't had one application. I haven't had one resume. So it's, we're still kicking around some ideas on how we can try to supplement that, and try to fix that problem. I shared one idea this morning with Chairman Roy. Not ready to kind of converse about it publicly yet, because still got to do some legwork behind the scenes. But we're trying to think outside the box in ways that we can attract and retain talented people. To be continued.
So Kim Worthy, just on the news, talking, and you don't normally see her emotionally distraught. She sent a letter out that was not intended to be for public knowledge, and it got out just the same that she contacted all the retired prosecutors, asking them to please consider coming back to help, because same thing. So once again, it's a systemic wide issue.
Yeah,
Same
there's a lot of
same
offices.
as with law enforcement.
And then to your question, St. Clair County is hiring. They've got an open position right now they're trying to fill. They pay more than we do. Home, they pay more than we do. Oakland, same story. There's a lot of other offices that are not our direct neighbors that are, hiring right now too. So you're right, it's statewide. It's a bidding war, and the highest bidder gets them. So, but we'll keep working it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. Jason?
Good morning,
Good morning.
County Clerk, Teresa Spencer. Here to share a couple of things with you. Wanted to give you an update on the Re-Apportionment Commission meeting every 10 years. That commission consisting of legislatively the clerk, the treasurer, the prosecutor, and then the two party chairs with major political parties are tasked with the responsibility to review the population numbers and to evaluate current commissioner districts, prepare maps, engage any comments from the citizenry, and then present a plan for the commission districts that are going to go forward for the next 10 years. So we have started meeting, and we're on hold basically because of the official release of census data. It was originally planned that it would be released end of September. The Bureau of Elections, Department of State had moved that up and now has officially released the data on September 16th. So what that does, it starts the time clock, because within 60 days, our commission has to have our work finished. So what we decided at our most recent meeting is to publish in the local newspaper that we will have a public meeting, and that's going to be held on October 20th, and we're planning it for 5:30 so that those folks that work can also mark that down on their calendar to attend. We would like permission to hold that meeting here in this building, and I can work out the dynamics of all of that with administration on which room and having the building open after hours. We do have the building open after hours when I have election returns coming in, so we could maybe use those same kind of dynamics, if that's all right with your board, and we can talk about it again in another meeting, because I'm not right up against the publication deadline with the county press, which is where we propose to publish that. So I think we have the most distribution out into the community with that. So the plan is that we're going to be doing our work, looking at the data, looking at the districts. It's my understanding that our population has increased around 300 people, and where those people land, where they land in our county will have an effect, maybe not an effect, but that's part of our job to do that. We did at our last meeting agree that we would, rather than purchase outside software at a cost, that we would utilize what's, they're calling it a 60D tool that's been released by the Department of State through Bureau of Elections at no fee to us to be able to do that mapping, and it's pretty advanced. My understanding is compared to 10 years ago, I was not involved in this process then, but I think it was a lot of drawing and coloring and things. So we're excited to get into that and to see what that can do and present. proposed maps for the community to look at it. Anybody that would be interested in presenting comments about that. So our meetings are posted, anybody is welcome to attend. So far, we haven't had any persons from the public attend, but we certainly welcome that. And then again, that published notice, hopefully we'll get some folks coming in to join us. We want to hear their comments. Along those lines, just to share with you, budget for what we're doing, the publication costs, which I understand 10 years ago probably were absorbed out of my election budget, which that is not a problem. We can manage that. But also a consideration about per diem for the other parties that are working on this commission. So I looked up the schedule currently exists for different boards like cancers and jury, et cetera. And the Re-Apportionment Commission is not listed there, probably because it's so seldom that it's used. So I would like to send you all a conversational email so we can discuss this at a future meeting. We're not done with our meeting, so we're kind of in the flux right now to do that discussion. So that's basically an update and then a question about that. So any questions for me about what's going on with our commission meetings and Re-Apportionment Commission meetings? It's a big title. You can call me or email me anytime if you have questions.
I think that the other board, as far as the state, as far as the redistricting, it looks at last, now don't write this down, because,
I can't, I'm up here.
well, I'm talking about
Okay.
my buddy behind you. The whole thing is that looks like Lapeer County is gonna stay whole right now. Because they were talking about splitting it up and sending half of it to St. Clair, half of it to Oakland, half of it to somebody else, so maybe we can get Sarah in.
I heard that you're talking about the independent citizens redistricting for
Yeah.
the larger consideration. Our commission just does local.
No, I understand it,
But,
but as far as there a lot of consideration about splitting up Lapeer County.
that would be music to my ears if we're left whole, because it has a huge effect, as does the commissioner reapportionment on the election management, because of precincts and ballot styles and so on. So we have been, fortunate leaving Lapeer County that our state rep district is our county border. So it's easier for the citizens to understand who represents them in Lansing for that respect, and also for ballot, selfish here for the election management of our ballots. Now, we do share our Senate district with two other counties, but that is managed. But what that independent citizens group is doing is a very curious thing, and I understand that we all have an opportunity to go on that website and make comments to them if we can help them and understand our demographics and so on. So if you want that website, let me know. I looked it up. So that's what I wanted to share with you about that. Secondly, to change topics, we have 2 Board of Canvassers seats that are, terms are expiring, they expire the end of October. So the legislatively it requires that you folks do a public ballot at one of your meetings to actually vote on who's going to be on the Board of Canvass. So I would suggest if we could put that on the agenda for perhaps October 7th. More of the members may be back present. The way that works is I have to reach out to the major political parties for recommendations of names. And I have gotten those names, and they are current Board of Canvass members, which is very helpful because those folks have been in those seats for a while and they understand negotiating with the election returns and so on. So with your permission, I'll add that to the agenda. They're coming in on October 7th. Your plan. Okay.
That's fine.
Any questions about that one? Thank you very much.
Mr. Joseph.
Morning, Commissioners. Joseph, here county front of the court. Just Two things I wanted to bring to your attention this morning. First is that the front of the court is applying for a grant. That's the Access and Visitation Grant. If you recall, I was in front of this board recently, and they amended the contract. This would be applying for the fiscal year 2022 contract. The minimum amount awarded is $400, but as indicated by the amendment, additional monies are usually added on at the end of the year from other counties that don't take advantage of this program, so that's why we take advantage of any and all grants we can from the state. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. And secondly, I want to inform this panel, or this commission, that I'm pleased to celebrate my 8th year working for Lapeer County today. I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank Tim Turkelson, the Honorable Mike Hodges, Cam Wilson, and John Miller, who all provided me guidance when I first started in the prosecuting attorney's office. I want to thank the Honorable Nick Koloka, who gave me a shot both as the domestic relations referee and as the interim friend of the court. And I want to thank all the judges who put their support behind me, appointing me unanimously as the friend of the court. I want to thank this commission for being receptive to our office's needs and our requests. And finally, I want to thank our staff for the dedication in ensuring the difficult work we do every day gets done. And I look forward to working with everyone to see what the future brings. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. That's nice.
Congratulations.
Elected official, department head updates. Would anybody else like to give us an update this morning? Don't say anything from the sheriff.
I'm sorry, we got something going on, so I'm on the phone with it, so I'm good, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. So I see no more elected official department heads this morning. Like to give us an update? Close that, move on to the first public. Who would like to address this board during the first public time today?
Good morning. I'm Sandra and I live in Attica. I'm a new resident of Lapeer County, about 5 years. Mine is totally different and I'm not sure if I'm in the right place or not, but I was told this is where I would bring this to address it. I have concerns along with neighbors in the area around us in regards to the gypsy moth. I'm not sure if you guys have already addressed it or talked about it or have plans or some type of suppression plan for this. But I did want to come and address my concern for that. Also with the webworms that are all over, this is a beautiful county and it really takes away from our beauty and our trees and it's devastating for our trees as well. So I'm not sure where I would find the plan, if there is a suppression plan or how I go about doing that, but I thought I'd bring my concerns here because that's what I was told I needed to do. So any ideas as far as where I could find that suppression plan? Do we have one? Do we have a committee to address the issues or?
This is a public time. It's your time to address the board. We do not respond during public time.
I see. So I'm just addressing the board and then I would.
But we may respond later in the meeting.
Later
Not
in the
during
meeting.
public time.
I got you. So make sure I addressed everything that I wanted to speak about. I know Bay County last May did a suppression program that had aerial treatment for the control. I just wanted to see what our board and what Lapeer County can do for Lapeer County. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to address this board during the first public time? Hearing and seeing no one, I close the first public time. Moving on, notice of appointments needed. Tracy says we have to wait to vote.
Oh, if you want to vote today, I have the ballots.
Want to do it today, Lynn?
Ballots for which one?
Or the canvassers?
Oh.
For the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Oh, sure. I just didn't want to rush it if you need more time for consideration, so. The MCL provides that we do a public ballot. Private ballot, but public. So, both, these, Board of Canvas members, represent each of the major political parties. So the candidate names that were presented to me are on the sheet.
Whoever will we choose?
This is kind of a tough. We vote for one each.
One each, please. And the keeper of the votes, once I have the last ballot, I'll announce publicly. Okay. Okay, reappointed for the Republican representative is Greg Harper, and reappointed is for the Democrat representative is Tracy Hunt. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Vacant needed to be filled. Let me see what else we got out here. Planning, we got a couple that we need to put on the emergency management.
Well, yeah,
But do they meet?
you know, I was gonna be, my question was, that board has specific slots.
Right.
So it looks like the couple that we have before us right now, both law enforcement background. And then there's a legal representative vacancy and an organized labor vacancy, which is not unusual for those two categories, because it's hard to find people in those categories that are available to serve on it. So if the two applications that we have right now are only for law enforcement purposes, although they're both highly qualified, one is a Lapeer County resident and one is not. So for me, that makes the decision based on that alone. I would nominate Mike Bosky to emergency management.
This is the other state.
Yeah, but again, it's not, and I appreciate the fact that he is serving here in the Lapeer County Post, but we all know with the state police, they moved all around the state. I think you want to have a little bit of stability on board, like I say, so that gentleman lives in Oxford.
I think Mary was trying to snake them both in, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that if he expressed an interest, if he could serve in another form or another capacity, Mary needs to let us know, but based on the vacancies that the clerk provided us with, we only have organized labor, legal representation, and law enforcement. I don't think, there's nothing in the application that indicates organized labor or attorney. Mike, were you looking to serve as a citizen at large? The application doesn't give that, or is it up for the law enforcement specialty?
I was approached after a 911 meeting about that, and it was a local official, sent the stuff over, and then of course made an appointment in the interim. And so I said, well, you've got that, you're all set. Then Mary approached me again and said, no, I still want you to fill out an application. Different slots, I can have up to 2. Quite honestly, I don't know what slot she has, and if it's already filled, that's fine too. Because I was approached as, hey, are you interested in? I guess because I participated for years in like their mock disasters and whatnot, and so I've been an integral part of the MAC outside of the board position.
I know you've also served as a local government representative on certain boards.
911, yeah, 911 on the township.
Right, do we know if that is a position that's currently being occupied on the EMAC board?
Correct, it's my understanding you just filled that within the last month.
So we'll be on that.
Do we need a separate
For the appointment?
nomination?
No, I don't think so. We just-
Yeah, but I don't know the definition of whether or not law enforcement means that you're operating in that capacity or you have that experience. I want to see you be able to continue to contribute to Lapeer County. That's just a unique board that has specific very much like community corrections that has specific slots and specific, so, I guess, I guess it would probably be best that withhold the nomination and just wait until we can confer with Mary to see what exactly are the requirements of those.
I'm gonna have to confer with Mary anyway. Quentin and I talked about it this morning. I brought it to his attention that there's a lot of things that have to be changed on that board. There's a lot of people on that board that no longer exist for that board. So she has to make a lot of changes in different things that she's doing. So I need to talk to her. And there's also, she has on Monday, she has one of those disasters.
This Saturday.
Saturday?
Yeah.
She also has one of those planned. I think she's gonna do that under the old.
Well, that is cooperation with EMS, fire departments and so forth, outside of the position of the board. For example, we didn't have one last year because of the whole COVID thing, but the previous one. So I served as the public information officer in that disaster, and it has nothing at all to do with EMAC board. That was just, you're appointed based on your, I guess, my ability to react to the media.
Well, yeah, I guess
Well, that didn't
that's,
answer my question. But
Yeah, I
that's
guess-
okay.
I guess I would withhold any nominations then at this time, and we'll wait for you to confer with Mary. It's an important board.
Sure it is.
And I appreciate the individual members that have an interest in serving. Like I say, the stability is also a little bit of an importance, because as much as they bring in expertise, you want to be able to have somebody on the board that sees through and assists with the planning, not constantly changing names and names. So I guess we'll go off on that one.
I want to check and see if there's a way we can put both of you on that board someplace. That's okay. We'll get you on there.
And quite honestly, whether I'm on the board or not doesn't take away with my involvement with EMAC. I mean, that's
No, I understand.
part of something.
I understand.
So,
Yeah, appreciate you, Gary, having this conversation. Thanks. On the Community Corrections Advisory Board, there's some vacancies that we've had that we've left vacant as we've been working with our other county partners to make sure that we equally distribute those. But these three positions that are coming up for renewal of the 2-year term, all three of these individuals have been actively working. So I would renominate Mike Slater, Dave Mallett, and Phil Folks. And again, they occupy specific spots, just like we talked about UMAC. So I would nominate those individuals to serve another 2-year term on the Thumb Regional Community Corrections Advisory Board.
What do you
Just
have?
have to close the nomination.
Yeah, that's unanimous ballot.
So I move that we close nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Matt Slater, Dave Mallett, and Phil Forbes.
I'll support.
The support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. Moving on.
I have a question, I don't know if this work answered it or not, I thought going in, but she wasn't in. Shirley Lyons is on there as a Senior Programs Advisory Board member. And we appointed Bonnie Freeman a few weeks ago, and I thought that's where she was gonna be, what? For the Lapeer Center.
You asking me? Oh, I am trying to review the notes from previous appointments. I have to probably defer to Lynette so that I can
Okay.
answer correctly,
Yeah.
accurately. So your question was if Bonnie Freeman was appointed to the senior advisory?
Well, no, to the Programs Board Advisory, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I thought she was taking Shirley Lyons' place. So if she's someplace else, I need to know where.
Is it a timetable that I can get back with you?
Oh,
in a
yeah,
second?
yeah.
Okay, okay. Let me look into that and then I'll get an email your way.
Or next week even, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And Brendan, with your Alma, was that?
Yeah. She is not sure whether. I talked with Eric Phil and Valley, and they have to get back to me whether or not she qualifies for that position or not. Not qualifies in the qualifications, but is allowed to because of her position.
It was my understanding.
She did, but there, she has to check and make sure that, that's what she used to overlap. Like, you can't serve on it 6 months after, or you can't get anything, so that's, yeah. I had a phone call, actually this morning with Mary, so we'll get figured out. I'm confirming with Anna to make sure she still wants to do it.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
We all done with that?
Yeah.
Buildings and grounds are request for action, RFA, to advertise for skilled trades contacts.
Yes. So what we would like to do is we would like to build a directory of skilled tradesmen. This would include carpenters, plumbers, HVAC, roofers, concrete finishers. We have projects that will be scheduled in the future, and we would like to be proactive and start gathering the directory of tradesmen in the area. So when the project is declared, we have a go-to source of contractors to contact. I think I brought this up at a previous meeting. This was actually Gary's original idea. We've moved forward with actually putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We do have a quote coming back from The View and Lapeer County Press, essentially, and all their newspapers that can touch Genesee County, parts of Macomb County, Tuscola County, parts of Bay County, I believe. Tri-County Times will be included in this. What we'd like to do and what we're asking permission to do is to engage in an advertisement and to spend money paid through contract services, to have it listed, run in a weekend's paper, and then to have a virtual presence so contractors can access the link online and sign up. We've used Building and Grounds to build the directory. The spreadsheet's been verified. Building and Grounds has instructions, so when a contractor would call in, they would have the instructions on how to fill out what is essentially a form, and we would capture all their information and put them in the directory so we can contact them whenever the project comes up.
Glad we're moving forward with it. I'll move the draft motion. Support.
We have a motion and support, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Additional items.
And Gary, actually, before we go to that, quick question for Teresa. Did we approve the meeting minutes?
Yes.
We did? Okay. I must have missed that. All right. I just didn't put a check mark on it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't put a check mark there, so I was making sure. So, yeah, I have a motion and I will give Teresa the paper I have upstairs. I actually have it written down on the board of procedures. To make a change to the way that we do committees. And really what I see it as is a change to return to like a regular order, if you will, on how committees work. So essentially, every other Thursday will be a committee day. Will be essentially how it would go. So properties can have committee that day, personnel, whatever the regular committees are. And as regular committees, I mean the committees that are appointed by the chairman, so this excludes ad hoc committees. We'll meet on those days as needed, and those motions made in those committees will go directly to full board instead of going to a committee of the whole. Reason being, if we don't do, our current system is we have a personnel committee or properties committee that goes through all the processes, asks all the questions, brings everything up, brings it all out, flushes it all out, and then brings it to the committee of the whole for it to be flushed out again, all the questions be asked again. Essentially, the committees serve no real purpose outside of just having an extra meeting. So this creates more of a committee system, which we currently have in place, and then the full board gets final review of all committee decisions, which is the way it should be. Of course, everything that doesn't go through a committee will still go through committee of the whole, and then go on full board through the regular process. So that is the proposed changes. It would also allow us to have 2 personnel meetings during the month instead of our current 1 personnel meeting a month, which will definitely help with backlogs and concerns that we have. It's really a trust issue, I feel, between the board members. Do the board members trust committees to do the work? If yes, then I think this is the right thing to do. If not, just fine. If the board does not trust committees, then let's not mess around with having them in the first place. So the motion I have is to amend the board procedures to allow all regular committee motions to move immediately to full board upon approval at committee level. So I make that motion.
Support. We've had
We have a motion and support, but these meetings will be as committee of the whole, following committee of the whole.
Yes, following committee.
Following. Have a motion and support. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, we got something else, man?
Yes, when I handed out the dais this morning, I'd like to first, before we get into the detail, I'd like to thank Jackie Arnold. She did an excellent job putting the numbers together. We have reviewed these. We went over what they mean for expenditure categories. And what we're about to discuss is the American Rescue Plan cash balance, as it were, for what we have spent the money on, remaining balances, and some of encumbered costs that we just haven't spent yet. So we'll just track this very quickly. You have this to review. Obviously, if there's any questions you'd like to bring back to myself or Jack, you're more than welcome to. But in a nutshell, the total amount of ARPA revenue that's unencumbered, not unspent money, is $16,073,792.67. Chris, I'll make sure you get copies of this, okay? You're welcome. So that's what we haven't spent. What have we spent? To date, we have spent $146,941.73. And if you look on,
Where's that number you just gave?
so it's first page, second number, less spent year to date. 146.
Are you looking at the spreadsheet or something?
I'm sorry, look at the summary page, second line.
Okay, there it is, thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to transition now to the second page. This is the spreadsheet. And I want to, you can read it yourself to understand any where the money's being spent. But I want to just make note, in the upper right-hand corner, this is very, very important. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see things 1.7, 2.11, 7.2, and so on. You see that? If you follow your eyes down that column, anything that's the number that's in that column is the expenditure category that's been spent on. For example, we have 1.07. Now, what does that mean to everybody? We hand you a cheat sheet. Cheat sheet looks like this. Every expenditure category in the American Rescue Plan. This is where monies can be spent in eligible categories. You will find the different headings and you'll see what 1.07 says. 1.07 is a physical plant change to public facilities. Okay? So if you go back to your spreadsheet and you see, okay, what did I spend 1.7 on? Okay? 1.7 was county telephone system, was budgeted for $150,000. Under the category 1.7, which is the change to the physical plant public facilities. This is how we justify how we spend the money. Every dollar that we spend lines up with a category, and we've organized it that way for you. Okay. The last one, the last big piece of information I'd like to bring to your attention, I'd like you to transition back, please, to the very first page, the summary sheet. Okay. You follow your eyes down to the asterisk. It's the second number from the bottom. Actually, it's the very last number. It's $6,216,583. This sheet, does everybody have that number?
That's calculated revenue loss for the fiscal year.
Total. No, total for the program.
Oh, thank you.
Total for the program. Why is that number important? 6,216,583. That is the generated revenue loss the county experienced due to the pandemic. How do we calculate that? So GFOA gave us a calculator sheet that we've submitted and been verified. We had a third-party auditor also look at our numbers to determine to make sure what the number we came up with lost revenue was agreeable. The third-party auditor agreed with our number, and this was what has been submitted to the federal government as our lost revenue. Why is that number important? The $6 million is important because that allows more flexibility in our spending. The prosecuting attorney this morning mentioned that he would like to have a visiting judge and he'd like to move up his backlog. And the question was, can art money spend that? And I said, wow, it looks like this category, this 3-point number looks like it might fit. Well, it may not. They may come back and say that's not a good fit. The amount of revenue loss, the $6 million, allows for that flexibility if something doesn't fit nicely in a bucket. It's important to understand the difference of that. So when we hear about eligible expenses, we have to have expenditure category. That's the cheat sheet I showed you. We have to have that number line up somewhere in here. If it does not line up, but is a project that we want to pursue, the revenue loss is the safety net. It's the bucket that we can reach into to pay for that project that does not fit nicely in one of these eligible categories. Does that make sense?
So until such time as everything has been audited or there is a comfort level, because this is an entirely new program, then if you saw these, so we've always used the term silos, but we use buckets. I like that. So we've got buckets in front of us that have different categories and then a general one over here. So we reach into this specific bucket over here to pay for this need, and it later comes back, you couldn't do that. No problem, we just put it back in that bucket, reach into the general bucket, and now we're good to go. So with that in mind, sounds like it would probably be good to have some level of reserve in that general bucket for in case that happens.
But I would
The
agree.
last thing we want to do is spend all of this stuff down and then have the scenario that you just described, where you spend something, it wasn't allowed for that category, and we go to reach into the general bucket, and that one's empty too. So it sounds like that's the last one that we should spend down.
For the lack of a better term, I would not reach into the revenue loss bucket until every other option was exhausted. And we realized that if that is a project we wanted to fund, and that was the only bucket. We have to remember too, ARP is not the only funding source to have things done. USDA has funding that's available. The SBA has funding available that's through grants. There's a lot of financial stacks that we can make to solve the problem. GST Michigan Works has things that we can work with. There's options. What's important though is when somebody says, I have this idea and I'd like to see if it fits. Our first response should be, what bucket? That's how we need to keep track of this. And for Jackie and the finance sake, to keep track of all of our expenses. It's very, very important that we track out every penny.
Great administrative tracking. Really appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you, Jackie.
Both of you guys, Parks and your staff.
I'm not asking for anything today. Just wanted to give you an update.
No, yeah, I asked for this and got more than what I expected in an extremely quick time frame. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Was there any additions other than those two that we just went through? Planning?
Okay, we're on the draft motions from September 16th committee as a whole. The last 3 pages of your packet, which are double-sided, so 5 pages total. And we'll start with page 1 of 5, I will move motions 1 through 5.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Page 2 of 5, I will move motions 6 through 10.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Page 3 of 5, I will move motions 11 through 17.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Page 4 of 5, I will move motions 18 through 24.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And on page 5, I will move motion 25.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us down to, well, we got a few things before we pay this bill. Fiscal planning, budget discussion. Is there anything we need? I guess you did. Ad hoc committee updates. Are there any ad hoc committee updates? Are you seeing them? We'll close that portion of the fiscal planning, budget discussions.
Hey, Quinn,
Hey, Quinn,
do
Sir,
you guys have anything down the first?
for fiscal planning, budget discussions, or anything you want to discuss?
Jackie, do you have any budget updates?
No, I don't have any today.
We did have a very successful budget hearing last week, and
Right.
I was extremely proud of the efforts of the departments we met with, and they zeroed in on revenue. A lot of times in county government, it's expenses. Department heads are reaching in, Sheriff McKenna, Ms. Clark, talking about, what are ideas that we can explore to generate revenue as expenses we know are going to go up. I thought it was a great meeting. I thought we covered a lot of ground.
Okay. Audit motions, Lenny? We need to pay the
Yes, sir.
bills.
Okay, the audit motion in front of you, I will move the road commission's audit motion. Checks dated 9/23/21, and the county's audit motion with the controller's signature.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Chairman White.
Yes. We spent $3,115,691.36 of hard-earned taxpayer money. Moving on, that brings us to the second public time. Would anybody like to address this board during the second public?
Carolyn.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions. I understand the motion regarding the committees, because I understand like hash and then you have to rehash and everything. But I just hope that it doesn't diminish the transparency to the public, so that, I don't know if you're gonna have committee reports in your agenda or in your minutes, but that's just something that I think people would like to see. And then the other thing is, I know it's in your agenda where people apply for the appointments like the BAAA and the Senior Programs Advisory Board, but I think that, it's in the agenda, but there might be people in the public that would also like to know that information where they apply, because it shows to administration or something. And then the other thing is, I know, Brendan, you were talking a few weeks ago about the CRT resolution, and I wonder if there was, I know you can't answer now, but where that is or where that's going. So, thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to this board during the second public time?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I've been dealing with something here, so I do have to roll, but I didn't want to address Commissioner Snyder. I didn't want you to think that we put you off on the whole ad hoc thing. Quentin and I had some long talks. I was on the phone yesterday with Jody Curbison about something that we're kind of excited about. Jody reached out after reading the article So we are, as of right now, we're waiting for confirmation on Jody. We're gonna be meeting with her next week. As some options, she believes her programs can help us with some of the academy stuff. So I thought it was probably important to have that meeting before the ad hoc met. So I just wanted to make sure that, that you do that. Second part is on, when we talked about the revenue stuff. We have implemented some changes already, referenced some of the ways that we were doing things. And to be honest with you, people that probably had too much on their plate, that we've spread out to some of the newer employees with it too. And then obviously we have to meet on some of those things with sitting down. But I think we are on the way. After that meeting, we sat down, looked at the way we were doing things. As I told you in there, I believe we play a hand in some of those things that we need to fix those. So we've already made some internal changes on things that will make, obviously, Jackie's job way easier to figure out some of those answers. But I apologize, I got to roll, but I wanted to make sure you knew that. Thank you very much.
Anybody else like to address this board during the second public time? Hearing and seeing, no one, I'll close the second public time. We don't have a closed session today, but we had a couple of questions you might want to address.
Yeah, so just as generic commissioner time raise. So first thing I have on here, redistricting. So I did actually just want to note to the commission that the Senate map is out. Lapeer is actually split in half in the Senate map. Lapeer City, that line seems to then south. So south goes to Oakland, the rest goes north. The congressional map came out yesterday, I think it was. And good Lord, what did they do to the state of Michigan? Saginaw County is drawn into the UP. So the entire that side of the state is drawn into UP. Then you have the whole entire west side of the state connected. Now Lapeer County, it's Lapeer, Genesee County, the southern half of St. Clair County, and then the northern half of Macomb and the northern half of Oakland. So in other words, Dale Kilday's out of a job because that's a very Republican district. But besides that, we're now out of the thumb. The thumb's in its own little district now. It's a mess, and then there's going to be a lot of civil rights people that are angry because they actually got rid of one of the majority districts in Detroit. They cut it completely, so there's only one now. Which, to be fair, anyone who's drawn a map before, you really couldn't draw it anymore because the disbursement of African American voters just doesn't make it. That's why we had such a weird looking map last time, is because in the state of Michigan under the Civil Rights Act, you have to draw two majority black districts, which is really difficult considering the city of Detroit only has 735,000 people, and one congressional district is about 730. So they had to split the city of Detroit in half and then draw up to Pontiac. Hence why we had a stupid looking district. And then, of course, the redistricting committee pointed out that we have stupid looking districts, and now they made districts that I think are even more asinine than before. So there's that. We'll see what they do with the state house. It definitely looks like they're trying to do like a community of interest sort of look. The reason they gave for having Saginaw go all the way up to the UP is because, well, you know, when you're driving up, literally the words are, when you're driving from Saginaw, you see the sign and the sign says Mackinac City North. So that makes the most sense that you connected to Mackinac City. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. As far as our redistricting, I'm much more confident in our process than the state process. I think it makes sense. I actually did some numbers, and there's actually a really great redistricting tool, by the way, for anyone out there. If you want to redistrict yourself or you want to look at the numbers, davesredistricting.com, go on it. It gives you all the explanation. You can draw your own maps for whatever the heck you want to. It gives you a lot of context. But for our districts in particular, me and Gary, we lost quite a bit of population. Lenny's up quite a bit. Rick is actually even. If you actually redraw Rick's district as it is right now, there's one person more than what you need. So it's like perfect. But that's kind of where we are. The northern lost quite a bit. The south gained. So that's kind of how it flushed out there. So there's that. We'll see how the state house goes. I have a feeling that if they continue down their path, Lapeer could very well get cut up to 2, if not 3 different districts. Now, moving on to the gypsy moth issue. I don't have too much to say. We've said it before. It's a very difficult issue to deal with, and actually, I'm actually very happy you brought up Bay County, because I looked into that, because what was it, a couple months ago, we had some questions about it. And Bay County does have a plan. I looked at the plan, and it brings up the exact problem that we all discussed, is when you do gypsy moth spraying, there's a 2-mile opt-out zone that exists if somebody doesn't want it. And if you look at the Bay County map, you'll see Bay County, and the opt-out map, and you have like these little splotches everywhere where they can spray and they can't spray. And it makes you wonder, does it even make a difference at all? Because there are huge swaths where there's no spraying at all, and there's a little bit up here, a little bit down there. And unfortunately, due to, health regulations, that's how the law is. So if you don't want gypsy moth spraying by your house, you now control 2 miles of airspace around your home, and your neighbors are just kind of out of luck. So, as I think we've said before, and I'm sure other commissioners will say their own thing on gypsy moth, but this is something that is hard to do at a county level. It's much more local control, but I'll leave that up to them. Other thing I wanted to take note on, the ARPA, I'm really excited that you brought this. This is great. I'm sure there's more regulations when it comes to the actual categories. One that I would really like to see us take a look at is 2.04, internet access programs. I would love to see that in my district, because Otter Lake, for instance, anyone around that area, heck, my house, no real internet access availabilities. I mean, I can get satellite, but as anyone who has satellite internet will tell you, it's really not worth it. It's not worth paying $200 to lose internet on a consistent basis. I can't do any work there. So that's something I'd like to see us look into, especially for my district, because it's definitely needed. And the fact is, I'm convinced that there are places like Otter Lake that could do better and could have businesses go to the area, but they can't, because who's going to go to an area where you can't get any internet? On to the other 3 other things I have down here. One is committee appointments. It was brought up that you're concerned about not being able to reach out to the public. I understand that. I think a couple of months ago now, maybe it was a little longer ago, we actually had something in the paper about committee appointments being open. I think it was just a little article. Maybe we need to do that again to mention the committees, especially the seniors committee. So that might be an idea. I know we've done it in the past. CRT update. I was actually at North Branch 2 weeks ago, so that is making its way through. I'm planning to go to Elmont next, because that's the next one on the list. And then I think maybe Lapeer. I don't know. I'm kind of debating on whether to save Lapeer last, because I think that's probably where we get the least amount of signatures at. And then finally, committee explanation. I just want to say, this process, the current committee process is completely public. Anyone's available to sit on it if they want to. That will remain that way. So, any public can attend at any time. As I said, I think it just creates more of a committee process instead of what we currently have, where it's like a subcommittee, then goes to a committee, and then goes to the full board. Everything a committee does, and to address the committee reports, I do believe all committee reports are included in the packet that is available to be picked up before the meeting. Is that correct, Teresa?
At this point, I'm not in charge of like personnel minutes or property minutes. Those are handled by administration.
Yeah, and those go on to the public packet, so correct still?
I'm not, I don't know that.
Okay, I'll get clarification.
Okay.
I'll make sure
I
they
do the whole minutes, yes, those travel with the agenda and so on. So I don't.
They're not? Okay, I'll make sure they're included then. They'll be included from now.
I would like those as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't see those.
What we'll do is we'll make sure that those are included in the packet so the public can pick them up at any time and read them. Because, if you're out in the public and you're hearing us go, okay, motion 1 through whatever, it's kind of hard to understand what that means. So yeah, increase transparency there. So I know I rambled on for about 5 minutes there, had a lot to say. Last thing, promise, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be in South Carolina for a conference. So just want to give everyone a heads up. That's all I got.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Did you have anything? I don't have money.
Yeah. Just wave your hand if you can't breathe on the meantime. Just so that you know, on the Gypsy Moss thing, because we're not gonna beat that thing and keep repeating it, because it's been addressed in previous meetings. Problems like that are really, that's what local government is for, because you can't paint a county-wide map. There's a lot of parts of the county that go, we don't have that problem, or we don't want it. So I strongly encourage you, it's not an attempt to pass the buck, it's an attempt to focus on what is the appropriate research. That's really a local government issue. And so I would definitely encourage you to have that discussion if you haven't with your local government. Although if you're one of the pockets in the county that's having that problem, chances are it won't be new to your local government either. So don't be surprised that they've already been aware of it. And yeah, just to clear up the committees thing. So first of all, on the boards, standing committees or ad hoc committees, ad hoc meaning they don't regularly meet, but if an issue pops up, the chairman appoints a couple of members to work on a particular. Standing committees like personnel or properties were always meeting on stuff. There was always a process in place. Committee of the Whole, years ago, there was also a separate finance committee. Years ago, finance got incorporated into Committee of the Whole. So with Committee of the Whole addressing finances, there was always kind of a rule that if something is already budgeted, it's not a financial issue. Once the standing committee is done with it, personnel or property, it could just move right on the full board. So for anybody who's not aware, again, the process is after committees meet, then the Committee of the Whole, meaning all 7, meet to hash something out more as a committee. And then it moves the following week, every other week, like today is a full board. That's when we actually enact actions that we've taken. So if it had a no financial impact, it was already budgeted, it would move right to, if it was not a budgeted position, it moved to Committee of the Whole. And then it moved to, so that was 3 different times the same issue got looked at. And from a perspective of staff having needs, especially when it comes to things like personnel, that really bogs down the process. So all that happened here doesn't change paperwork, doesn't change transparency, because we're big on those things too. All it just does is kind of speed up that process by saying that things like personnel or properties or whatever the case may be, it's going to move right to the full board. And if the full board decides they need more work, then the full board could say, send us back to next week's Committee of the Whole. And they can actually, the full board can give that committee authority to act, meaning enact it after they, or work on this and bring it back, or they could send it to a committee. So that's all that was done, was just to kind of streamline that process. I hope that's clear as mud. And then on boards and committees and stuff like that, Quentin, that we use the public for, in addition to us discussing it in meetings and like the newspaper, whatever, I know we've got the form on our website that people can fill out. But do we have an actual running list of those boards and when there's vacancies, much like what the clerk has? Because that might be good, rather than having to just every once in a while go, oh, we got these vacancies and these vacancies. That might be a good thing to just add onto our website. So the public can go on our website and look down and go, oh, I'm interested in that. So I'd like to see us possibly explore that. Last but not least, because we'd be remiss if we didn't give a big thank you to the View newspaper group. So especially back when the pandemic first started, community health became a real concern. This board talked about it quite a bit. It was being talked about in the community. The Lapeer County Community Foundation, a few other groups, all put together some discussion groups among businesses, citizens, government, and when it came to the topic of community health, we were looking to get some resource information out to the public so that the public knew if they had a friend, a family member, or if they encountered something, here's different agencies that you can contact. And the View newspaper group put together a really great edition that has gone into their paper and gone out to all the households a couple times, called Help and Hope. And that was funded with business, healthcare, education, government entities. After they did that, and we got a lot of positive feedback, as well as I'm sure they did, as far as how helpful this resource guide was, the discussion was, well, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could publicize something more compact, something that you could carry in your wallet, carry in your purse, throw in your glove box of your car, that 6 months later, if all of a sudden you encounter a neighbor, a friend, yourself, you don't have to, nobody hangs onto their newspaper, you know? And this was just a lot of good contact information. And so the paper stepped up, and in the last LA View that went to all the Lapeer County households, they put together this pocket guide that's easily detachable and foldable, and it could fit in a wallet, it could fit in a purse. Again, you throw it in the glove box of a car, and yeah, people can go on a website and people can read it in a newspaper, but really just to be able to have something like this that you can go, oh, that's the, you know, I remember throwing that in a car, I remember throwing that in my purse here somewhere and pulling that out. Big thank you to the newspaper group for hearing that call from the community and from governments and stepping up and producing something like that. And they did that in conjunction with Lapeer County Community Foundation. That's been really big in not only organizing these efforts, but helping to fund these efforts. So of course, a big thank you to the Community Foundation as well. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody. We would have been remiss if we didn't offer that thank you. So.
I think the Gypsy Moths and the committees you both went over real well. I'd just like to say that we had the walk for Walking to the Light for the suicide awareness. And it was a beautiful day, absolutely beautiful. And there were a lot of people there. If any of you frequent Walmarts, please thank them. They gave a 70-inch TV and 2 mountain bikes to raffle off. And I just can't say enough that that's something that's unheard of anymore. But the store manager did that. And so it was a good turnout, good hot dogs afterwards. We had a 50-50. I'm not sure, bottom line, after expenses were taken out, what we made that, but I'll let you know. But it was very, very nice. And that's all I have. That's it.
Well, I'll have to wait and see how they come out on this redistricting when they're finished with it, because they're still working on it. They're still trying to address different things. Kevin Daly called me and I had a long conversation with him about his district and everything else, about the affected, which way to go. And so no one really knows what happens. Sure, somebody will spend a lot of time messing things up, but that's just government. So we'll see how that goes. As far as the Gypsy Moss, it's we had a lady come in here last spring. She brought in all the information, put on a full presentation. But from the past, you gotta excuse me this morning. For some reason, I have a hoarse throat. But she brought in all the information and everything else, but we could never get a consensus. It's just like in this area trying to spray for mosquitoes or anything else. I mean, half the people would want it done, half the people wouldn't want it done. And I know that some of them even went to private companies to see if they could spray their area. And there are companies that do that. The only thing, I don't know how much area you have to spray, but it can be quite expensive if you don't have a larger area, so. We've been through that before, just like when we sprayed for cephalitis, and that's deadly. We all know that when it's cephalitis. But they allowed opt-outs, and so a lot of different people opted out. And so you had some sprayed here, some sprayed there, some sprayed over here. Department of Agriculture and the state says if we have to spray again for those mosquitoes, there'll be no opt-outs. Because that's something that kills people, especially children. So, saying that, I need one more. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you for all coming.
I
will, but, Jack, just let me know. I'll email to you today. Yeah, today. Yep, it's one Excel sheet. So,
Appreciate it. Well, it's impressive though. I love the cheat sheet and stuff. It's so helpful.
isn't that?
That was fine, that was the way I.
And it's good tracking.
When I took the job, I
Makes
told
sense.
I'm gonna do this.